Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm Zias Caravallo from ZK Research, and I'm here at Cisco's Penn 1 building in New York. I'm joined by Denise Lee, who leads Cisco's sustainability engineering efforts. We're both in town for the Global Citizen event, and we're actually both at the Climate Summit today, which is part of Global Citizen as well. Denise, is this your first Global Citizen?
This is my first Global Citizen and my first official Climate Week in person.
Wow, that's exciting.
Great to be here.
What did you think of the event today?
You know, the event was it was world class. In one morning, I had meaningful conversations with royalty, with Bill Nye the Science Guy, with Alok Sharma, who I did an interview with, who led COP and was part of Parliament, and had conversations with just good people and leaders from around the world trying to make a difference. It was phenomenal. Yeah,
that was quite a range. Everyone from Bill Nye the Science Guy to royalty to world leaders. Why Cisco's been part of Global Citizen now for years. In fact, Cisco's been one of the lead sponsors for years. Why this event? Why does Cisco feel it's important? This is an important organization to be a part of.
Well, when you look at Cisco's power and inclusive future for all, it really takes into account that we don't leave any human behind, whether that's being connected with the internet or from socioeconomic things. Cisco's always been a culture and a purpose and a people of just doing good and bringing people along. And I think what Global Citizen has endeavored to do is shine a light on those who don't always have a platform or a voice. And there's so many underserved markets and communities, and the climate action and the most vulnerable parts of the world don't always have the resources necessary to combat it the same way that others might. And so I think it's just a great way for Cisco to do some good with its overall mission and purpose and platform, but at the core of it, to connect our technology for good.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see over the last 5 years or so, really since the pandemic started, more and more large companies have stepped up to try and solve some of these world's largest problems. And I think on one hand, you could expect the world governments to do it. But I think one of the things that came through loud and clear this morning at the Climate Summit was that governments alone can't do it.
That's right.
They need the help from private sector.
That's right.
In fact, even some of the stronger advocates that were there initially said that we really didn't want to work with private sector, but then we realized that we do need their help. So, I applaud Cisco for doing that. I know that's been a big mission of Cisco since the company was founded.
Yeah.
I do think over the last 5 years or so, Cisco's really knocked it up another level. So that's impressive to see. So,
there's a concept I often apply in this instance, which is you need the sort of activists and the nonprofits, NGOs, and then you need the government sector and the policymakers, and you need private sector. And when you bring those three together, you get this trifecta effect, right? That's when you get real acceleration, and that's when you can truly mobilize a movement into action, whether that's for global health, for climate change, for things that happen on a world stage. But you actually need all three of those sectors working in concert together.
Yeah, and what was fascinating also to see was the amount of activity in the developed nations. You can make an argument that the developing countries are actually further along than countries like the US, even parts of the EU.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, one of the panels this morning included Mary D. Wysocki, who's Cisco's Chief Sustainability Officer. And she was talking about, from a Cisco perspective, this isn't just a number you throw out there, right? That we'll be carbon neutral by 2040, which is the goal you set. But in fact, you've taken sustainability and built it into the process of how Cisco builds their products. Right. So, which is your job.
It is.
Right. So explain how you do that.
Yeah. So it starts with everything from materiality in our supply chain, and we have the leading, world supply chain for years going.
Yeah, award-winning, right?
Yes, award-winning, which is a really solid foundation to stand on, because you take that and then you design your products with circularity in mind, with modularity in mind. But then you also have to look at not only the hardware layer, but the software component. So there's innovation that now starts to compound on itself between what you're building into the chips and the ASICs that are going into our devices, how the devices themselves are built, how they work with others inside the ecosystem, and then the software that goes on top of it, and how energy efficient that is, and how the hardware works with that software and those layers And then think about all the vendors and all the partners in that ecosystem. Then you close the loop and you think about circularity and circular consumption. So at the end of its useful life, what happens to these products, and how do we make sure we take it back? Very few people know, very few of our customers know that Cisco can take any product back and 100% recycle and reuse it.
Yeah, in fact, that is something I think probably more customers need to
Yeah.
be aware of. I know what's been good to me too is it's not just you talking about it, that this seems to be permeating down throughout Cisco. I toured the Oslo facility where they make a lot of the collaboration devices, and Snorre Jesper, who runs that group, a big part of his talk track to the analysts that were there was the circular design, was sustainability, it was how they're using more recycled material, how they're trying to reduce the amount of plastic,
Yes.
you know, things like that. So that was, that was certainly encouraging to see. So
especially for those products that are consumer facing, right? Like
Yeah.
our collaboration devices, you want to make sure that these beautiful products are responsibly manufactured and responsibly recycled or reused at the end of its life.
yeah, and what are you seeing from a customer perspective and how they're how important sustainability is to them from who they choose as a vendor? I was earlier this year, I was in the UK and I did a couple of CIO roundtables, and this topic came up, and the CIO of one of the big department store chains there said that sustainability is now 25% of the RFP decision-making process.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm just curious,
Fantastic.
what are customers telling you?
Yeah, my team ran the number, and I think I did something close to 100 customer briefings last year alone. And customers are asked, to your point, it is actually part of the decision-making process. And when you consider, chief sustainability officer roles or sustainability roles in general didn't quite exist at the levels they did just 3 or 4 years ago, right? Every year we're seeing this multiplier effect. And so because of that, they're actually making decisions because electricity costs are going up, the ROI and the total cost of ownership, actual economics of making these purchases with vendors that are more responsible in mind, with circular consumption models more in mind. It's actually moving the needle in terms of buying decisions, when they're refreshing, how they're refreshing, looking at their measurement of scope 3 and what's in their products. They have to look at all their value chain. So working with a vendor who has a transparent supply chain and knows, has those direct relationships with their suppliers is important to our customers, particularly as the list of what they call forever chemicals, and as we learn more, that list grows. So companies that aren't looking at that list all of a sudden may not be considered, as they want, as they once were with some of our customers. So these customers are getting smart. There are also those in sustainability roles. Some of them are coming from, the younger generations, and they learned about it in school in a way that we didn't. And so I think we're all going to have to sharpen our pencils and join the fight here.
But there's a cost argument here too, because one of the interesting aspects of 2023 has been last year at this time. I try and do at least one CIO workshop a month, and last year at this time, if I asked C-level executive what their goals are, what their business objectives are, it was all around customer experience. Yeah. This year, there's been a lot more focus on cost savings and operational efficiency, and in some ways, sustainability and cost savings are two sides of the same coin.
Right.
If you refresh your equipment and you put things in that are more energy efficient, you use less data center space, you use less energy, so you're actually meeting other business objectives.
That's right.
By applying sustainability, right?
That's right. And sustainability is bringing a whole new glossary of terms and metrics that business operators were not necessarily paying attention to before, right? Rack density, power utilization efficiency in data centers, just the number of building management systems that are in play and how many, occupancy flow. These are things that we weren't really measuring and tracking before. Yeah. But the data that comes from sensors and endpoints and all of the things that we already have organically built into our products are helping to inform these decisions. Yeah,
and you actually have a lot of features like energy-wise, which will actually help equipment run differently and turn things off when not needed, right? So,
right.
Now, sustainability has become a more important topic for the enterprise customers I have. Some of them don't really know how to get started though, and so how much work do you do? It's one thing to build your products with sustainability in mind. Yeah. How much do you help your customers put their own plans in place and be able to build those networks and design their infrastructure with sustainability in mind?
So I'm so glad you asked that question, because it's actually it's table stakes for every customer, and there isn't a customer I've spoken with that has it all figured out. So the measurement,
Well,
all
it's
the
not
way
easy.
down, it's not easy,
Yeah.
and it's also changing, right? The
Yeah.
regulatory and reporting is constantly changing, or it's getting more fine tuned, I should say. Measuring accurate telemetry off of our devices is something that also requires engineering. So we have incredible engineers who are actually going and getting real power measurements off of devices in a more standardized way to eliminate what's called the power factor and other things that kind of are a bit of noise in these measurements. What's the real power that you're consuming? There's also a tremendous amount of energy loss that happens as you're converting power or even getting things through the distance and delivery of transmission lines. So what we're doing with our customers is helping them measure inside of our products at an API layer in a form that works for them, because again, this is very evolving. Every customer will have, handfuls of different building management systems and other consoles already in place. Others are willing to start from scratch. And so I think there's a lot of work we can do on the data side to have credibility and make it easy and simple to report around energy usage, energy efficiency, and even energy mix. Where is that energy coming from that's being consumed? How clean is it, right? Is it what's coming from, fossil fuels versus renewable energy?
There are so many levels to this.
There are. It's
Yeah.
it's not easy.
Yeah. And what's the process been like for your customers as they try and, track progress towards it? Because I was at an event early this year, and I think the number that was shown is maybe 5% of companies can actually track their progress towards it. In fact, your CEO, Chuck Robbins, joked about it at Cisco Live this year, where he said that, as a CEO, he used to be able to throw out a number, a goal, and then people would forget about it. But now he's actually being asked by the board to be able to help track the progress and know where they are. And so C-level executives are getting measured on their progress
Right.
towards it. So how do you help your customers with that? Because I know Cisco has a ton of data.
Yeah,
Right.
we do.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we need to make sure we need to endeavor to make it easy, right? If you look at overall greenhouse gas emissions and the usage of water, we're starting to see certain measurements across the industry as standard. And if you look at things like Standards-Based Target Initiative and other things, anchor on a couple of the gold standard measurement, and let's help everyone get there. And if you can do that in a credible way with accurate data coming off of, this is where automation plays a big role, right? How do we make it simple through APIs and observability and visibility at that layer? Because over time you want that to be automatic. But until you get smart about what data you need and how to get it, we have a bit of work to do with many of our customers. And Cisco, I think, can play a role at scale to make it easier.
And is this something that you see artificial intelligence and machine learning be able to aid? Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Because I can't have a meeting without talking
no,
about
you
AI.
can't.
Yeah.
The more we talk about AI, the more hits this will get, I'm sure. But the reality is, AI isn't anything new in terms of how we've done reading of insights and analytics into automation. You need AI to do that. What becomes more interesting is the applications of AI for sustainability. And there's so many more applications and use cases that I think we're going to see over time. But first, we have to feed the engine with accurate information. And I think that's one thing that we're starting with.
Okay, so for the IT leaders and business leaders out there that may be watching this, and if they're thinking about how to structure their sustainability within their organization, because it's a daunting task. You can, like I said, you can throw a goal out there, but in some ways that's a bit of a moonshot.
Yes.
Right. And so I've always thought of things like this as being chip shots, not moonshots. Take a small step towards it. What kind of advice can you give on how to get started down this road?
Two things. One, I would say forget the functional silos. Find the green hearts in your organizations and the leaders who are willing to take steps, roll their sleeves up, and get to accurate, credible measurement, right?
And every company's got to have it.
Every company has it. So first, forget the silos, forget titles and functions.
People love silos.
I know they do. It's a little uncomfortable to get out of it. Step across the hallway and go chat with the person in that other function, right? That's the first one. And the second is start with credible data, right? Because if you don't have a baseline to measure, it's really hard to know where you're going. But the measurement is clear. We need to eliminate carbon in the atmosphere. That's the goal. Yeah. And how do we do that? And there's lots of different ways you can get there. But if you don't know where you're starting from, it's really hard to know where you're going. So those two things.
All right, Denise, well, thanks for that. Just one more question.
Please.
We are here at the Global Citizen event. There's a concert as part of this, the festival. Is there any band that you're looking forward to seeing?
I'm a big Peppers fan, so Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Well, who's not?
Yes,
Yeah.
There you go.
So they have that Lauryn Hill, I think, is also here.
Yes, Lauryn Hill.
So,
there's such a great lineup. Global
Yeah.
Citizen does such a phenomenal job.
They do.
A lot of excitement.
Yeah, and so For those of you at home, I think they'll have some of it streamed. I'm not
Yeah.
sure though, and hopefully the weather will hold out for us.
Yeah, I will actually be tuning in from home this year, but
Oh.
I'm excited that a lot of my colleagues get to go.
Yeah, well, I'll
Yes.
be there, so
Good, enjoy.
I'll FaceTime and you can
Yes.
come in. So anyways,
good.
on behalf of Denise Lee, I'm ZKast. Thanks for watching the ZKast, and I'll see you next time on another video.